Okay, welcome back, guys. This is Attorney Matt Palu-ay, and we will now begin with Sales Law Chapter 4. So, this is our table of contents. So, we are now in Obligations of the Vendor. So, we'll just jump there. Obligations of the Vendor, that should be right here. 1479. I think we are still here. This is still a continuation of Chapter 3. Yes, this is a continuation of Chapter 3. Alright, what is Article 14? So again, we're not yet in Chapter 4. We're still finishing up Chapter 3. What is 1479? A promise to buy and sell a determinate thing for a price certain is reciprocally demandable. An accepted unilateral promise to buy or sell a determinate thing for a price certain is binding upon the promisor if the promise is supported by a consideration distinct from the price. So we are talking about a promise to buy and sell a determinate thing. So what are the kinds of promises treated in Article 1479? There's number 1, the accepted unilateral promise to sell, and accepted unilateral promise to buy. So when you say unilateral, that's from the word uni, that means only one. That's why you have words like unicycle, united, that means one. So there's only one person who's promising to sell, or there's only one person promising to buy. On the other hand, bilateral means two. So there's a promise to buy and a promise to sell. The effect of an unaccepted unilateral promise, either it's a promise to buy or sell, which is not accepted, creates no juridical effect. So such an accepted offer is called a policitation. This is, if you encounter unfamiliar words like this, like the words policitation, that's something that you have to remember, because those are the things that usually come up in the exams. All right. What if the promise was accepted? So again, we're talking about a unilateral promise to buy or to sell. If the promise to sell or to buy a determinate thing for a price certain was accepted, the same does not bind the promisor, and the promisor may withdraw the promise at any time. So in this case, it is only if the promise is supported by consideration distinct and separate from the price that it is accepted will it give rise to a perfected contract. So kapag promise lang, dapat hindi siya, based on this particular article, hindi siya dapat seryosohin. So dapat yung pangako na yun may kasamang konsiderasyon. Okay? Kasi madali lang naman mangako di ba? But yung tanong lang dun is whether or not yung pangako niya is binding. So, ang sabi dito, kung mangako man siya, hindi pa rin binding sa kanya yon at pwede niyang i-withdraw anytime. Except lang kapag may consideration or consideration that is separate and distinct from the price that its acceptance will give rise to a perfected contract. Okay, next. 1480 talks about the risk of loss or deterioration. So, there are the following rules. The thing is lost before the perfection. So, the seller bears the risk of loss. So, that means wala pa naman kayong meeting of the minds. So, there's no contract yet. So, at that point, yung seller, siya yung magbe-bear ng risk of loss. That makes sense naman kasi, syempre, hindi mo pa naman natatransfer yung ownership ng item, di ba? Or whatever it is that you were going to sell. Kaya, yung risk of loss, nasa seller. If the thing is lost at the time of the perfection, Contract is void because there's no object. Seller bears the risk of loss. So here, at the time of perfection, meaning dun sa oras na nagkasundo kayo, it appears na hindi pala in existence yung object. So again, you have to go back to your elements of a contract, which is consent, object, and consideration. If one of them is missing or is lacking, the contract rather is void. So in this case, the object is missing. So since there's no object, then the contract is void. Number 3, thing is lost after perfection but before delivery. So nag-agree na kayo pero hindi pa nabibigay yung item. The buyer bears the risk of loss. So this is actually one of the interesting things that for me actually does not make sense sa law. Kasi halimbawa, bumili ka ng cellphone, di ba? Yung example natin yesterday, bumili ka ng cellphone dun sa isang person, sa seller mo, tapos sabi mo, oh, sige, pag-grab mo na sa akin yung phone, yung cellphone na binili ko, ipapadeliver mo for grab delivery. But then, may nangyari dun sa phone na sira. If you are going to apply this, the thing is lost after perfection, but before delivery. Meaning, nag-agree kayo na bibilin mo na yung cellphone niya, but bago siya i-deliver, bigla siyang nasira. It says here that the buyer bears the risk of loss. So, yung buyer, which is yung buyer na yung may-ari, even though wala pa sa kanya yung possession, siya na yung may-ari ng item. Kapag may nangyaring something dun sa cellphone, the buyer will bear the risk of loss. Okay? However, I guess you could apply another provision of the law that we learned, which is the seller has the obligation to take care of the item with the due diligence of a good father of a family. So in the event na nasira niya yung item, di siya yung magbabayad. Siguro baka ito yung kino-contemplate nito yung mga situation na halimbawa i-deliver na lang pero nagkaroon ng undoy, halimbawa for two-way-to event, diba? Pag nagkaroon ng for two-way-to event, the buyer bears the risk of loss, not the seller. I think in that respect, that would make sense. Number 4, thing is lost after delivery. The buyer bears the risk of loss following the rule res perit domino. Okay, res perit domino. Yung word na res is, that means, res is item. So, perit domino, I think domino means dominion or ownership. So, the owner bears the risk of loss. Let me Google that for a while so I can search the meaning for that for you. Res perit domino. This is Latin. Meaning, res perit domino. The thing is lost to the owner. The phrase is used to express that when a thing is lost, it destroyed, it is lost to the person who was the owner of it at the time. So, kung sino yung may-ari ng item, siya yung magbe-bear ng risk of loss. Res perit domino. Again, when you see foreign words like this, especially if it's Latin, it's something worth remembering. And if you can try to memorize it, I would recommend memorizing it because these are questions that are often the favorites of examiners to ask. Okay, next. What is res perit domino? That means the thing is lost. I actually googled, but we have the answer here. The means that the thing is lost to the owner. The phrase is used to express that when a thing is lost or destroyed, it is lost to the person who was the owner of it at the time. So kung sino yung may-ari, siya yung magbe-bear ng risk of loss. Ganun lang kasimple. Article 1481. In the contract of sale of goods by description or by sample, the contract may be rescinded or cancelled if the bulk of the goods delivered do not correspond with the description of the sample. So, halimbawa, ang usapan ninyo is grade A material na semento, then dumating is grade B or grade C or grade D. Siyempre, hindi yun yung pinag-usapan ninyo. So, if that's the case, the contract may be rescinded. So, magkakaroon ng rescission. Again, yung rescinded, that means cancellation of the contract. So, sulian kayo ng kandila. 1482. Whenever earnest money is given in a contract of sale, it shall be considered as part of the price, of the purchase price, and as proof of the perfection of the contract. So, isa to sa mga pinaka-paborito na itinatanong. Earnest money. Earnest money is money given by the buyer to the seller to bind the bargain. It is actually partial payment of the purchase price and is considered as proof of the perfection of the contract. It may also be considered as the down payment, yung earnest money. Since earnest money constitutes an advance payment, it must be deducted from the total purchase price. So, malinaw tayo dun na earnest money is part of the purchase price. Okay. Ngayon, may comparison yan sa option money. Okay? So, kino-compare mo parati siya sa option money. So, again, yung earnest money is part of the purchase price. On the other hand, yung option money is money given as a distinct consideration for the option contract. So, dito, nagbibigay ka ng pera para mabigyan ka ng chance na bilhin or mag-enter dun sa contract. So, hindi ito part ng purchase price. Okay? Yung option money, hindi siya part ng purchase price. Earnest money given only when there is already a perfected contract of sale, meaning nag-agree na kayo. Yung option money, wala pang agreement. So, wala pang kontrata. The buyer is bound to pay the balance. So, in the event na hindi nagbayad yung buyer ng balanse, pwede mong singilin. On the other hand, sa option money, the buyer is given an option to buy, but he is not bound to purchase the same. So, halimbawa, yung option money is parang magbibigay ka ng pera, sabihin mo, ito, 10,000 pesos. Pero, bibigyan mo ako ng right na bilhin yan within, sabihin natin, 5 days. Ako lang yung may right na pwedeng bumili niyan. So, within 5 days, kailangan bilhin mo yung yung item. Kapag hindi mo binili, di wala lang. Siguro, mafo-forfeit mo yung binayad mo, which is, mafo-forfeit mo naman talaga yung binayad mo kasi hindi naman talaga siya part ng purchase price Pero ang kagandahan lang doon, hindi ka obligated na bilhin or bayaran yung balanse kung nakita mo na hindi mo pala gusto. Okay? At wala pang perfected contract of sale doon 1483. A contract of sale may be made in number 1, writing. Nakasulat. Yan yung mga deed of sale, deed of absolute sale. Pare-pareho lang yun. Number 2, by word of mouth. Okay? Number 3, partly in writing or partly by word of mouth. Yung word of mouth, yan yung verbal. Verbal yung contract ninyo. 1483 talks about the form of a contract of sale. So, saan ba naka-encompass o nakalagay yung isang kontrata ng pagbibenta ng isang ari-arian? Okay? As a general rule, a contract may be entered into in any form provided that all the essential requisites for its contract, for its validity are present. So, again, ano ba yung essential requisites ng isang contract? Ang sagot, COC. Consent, object, and consideration. Okay? So, pause muna tayo dito. I just want you to absorb this. A contract of sale may be made either in writing or in word of mouth or partly in both. So, ibig sabihin, pwede kayong magkakontrata kahit na hindi siya nakasulat sa papel. Basta nagkasundo kayo, may kontrata. Specifically, a contract of sale. Yun ang general rule. But, mayroong exception. Okay? Ano ba yung mga exception? Titingnan natin ha. So, again, the general rule in contracts, it need not be in writing. Of course, mas maganda kapag nakasulat sa papel para may black and white kayo, meaning may reference kayo. Diba? Kasi kapag verbal lang, pwedeng sabihin ng isang party, nakalimutan niya Ganun ka convenient. So, may exceptions dyan na hindi pwedeng verbal lang. So, ano ba yung exceptions na yan? Number 1, sale of real property. Pag nagbenta ka ng isang lupa, it must be registered with the registry of deeds. Otherwise, it will not be binding against third persons. The parties will still be bound by the sale, but it will not bind third persons. So, kung hindi nyo siya nilagay sa papel, hindi siya nakasulat, actually, kailangan dito public instrument pa Ibig sabihin, kailangan notarized siya. Hindi mo mababind yung third persons. And it's important for you to bind third persons. So, itong number 1 na to, that makes absolute sense talaga. Kahit sa practice Pag nagbenta ka ng property, kailangan yung property na yan, ay kailangan meron kayong deed of sale. Kasi yung deed of sale na yon, inonotaryo nyo para maging public instrument. So, yun lang naman ang pinagkaiba ng private sa public instrument. Yung public instrument, notaryado ng isang notary public. So, there was a time before na ako ay isang notary public sa Manila. Okay? Pero since lumipat na ako ng opisina sa Quezon City, nag-apply ako ng notary sa QC. So, hanggang ngayon, nakapending na ng 2 years gawa nga ng pandemic. Anyway, pag ninotaryohan mo yung isang private document, magiging public document siya. And it will bind third persons. Okay? But in this case, well, not necessarily bind third persons, but it will have more strength to it. Ano ba yung consequence ng notary na yan, ng pagnonotaryo? Well, napakasimple lang yan. Kasi halimbawa, may si A at saka si B nagkasundo sa isang agreement. Kung dalawa lang sila, valid yon as between the two of them. Ngayon, ang problema dyan, kapag nagka-issue sila sa future, pwedeng sabihin ng isang party, hindi ko alam yan, inimbento mo lang, peke yan, ginaya mo yung signature ko. Diba? Diba pwedeng mangyari yon? Actually, pwede at talagang nangyayari yon. So, kaya mo pinapanotaryuhan kasi yung notary public, siya yung person na mataas ang kumbaga, ang tiwala ng tao sa kanya, and may reputation siya na kumbaga hindi niya sisirain. At the same time, kung nagmeke siya ng notaryo, pwede siyang matanggalan ng lisensya, either as notary public and or licensed to practice law. Okay? So, sa case na ito, ang sale ng real property, it has to be notarized, and then after mo na notaryuhan, pupunta ka sa Register of Deeds. Ano ba yung Register of Deeds? Yan ang repository ng lahat ng mga titulo for that particular city. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng repository? Yan yung nilalagyan ng lahat ng mga titles. So, sa Quezon City, saan ang RD or Registry of Deeds ng Quezon City? Ang sagot, sa May East Avenue, sa tapat ng LTO ata yun Malapit sa, actually same sila halos magkadikit sila ng LRA. Alam ko yun kasi nagpupunta ako dati doon, may pinaprocess ako. Pero normally, ang mga Register of Deeds, katabi lang yan ng mga City Hall or ng Hall of Justice. Nandun sila sa isang malaking compound. Like, I think sa Pasig, within the same vicinity lang din naman So, ayun. Again, ikwento ko na lang sa inyo yung process ng transfer ng property para lang ma-appreciate niyo ito kung bakit talaga kailangan yung mga kontrata na pagbibenta ng lupa kailangan nasa in writing siya, hindi pwedeng verbal. Okay, ganito kasi yan guys. Halimbawa si A bumili ng property kay B. Okay, so si B yung registered owner, siya din yung seller. Binili ni A. Ngayon, ang gagawin nila is gagawa sila ng deed of sale. Okay? Ipirmahan nila pareho, tapos notaryuhin. Tapos bibigyan ng kopya si buyer, ang title. Ang gagawin ngayon ng buyer, bibigay din sa kanya yung yung original owner's duplicate title. Okay. Okay, pause muna tayo kasi baka nalilito na kayo. Ano ba yung titulo na yan? Okay. Pause, tatulo muna tayo sa land titles. Okay, law on land titles naman ito. Lahat ng lupa dito sa Pilipinas ay usually covered yan ng TCT or Torrens title. Okay? So may titulo, otherwise known as titulo. So itong titulo na to, nakalagay dyan yung meets and bounds ng property at kung sino yung may-ari. So itong Torrens title na to, na-invento to parang late 1800s ata or early 1900s para masettle yung mga property dispute. Kasi nung unang panahon, syempre nung mga panahon ng Kastila, hindi pa uso yung mga title na yan, di ba? If you can remember, parang ang kwento-kwento nga dyan is, sabi ng mga Kastila, you own the property as far as your eyes can see. Di ba? Parang ganun lang yung determination nila ng ownership ng title Pero later on, as we get, as we advance in technology, you have to really clarify, especially that yung value ng lupa, ng property, nagmamahal di ba? So, kailangan talaga, very important yan, na specific dapat yan, kasi kahit na 1 metro lang yan, napakalaki ng value ng ganyan. Imagine mo na lang siguro, example, sa New Manila area, parang ang per square meter nun, parang nasa, hindi ko alam baka nasa 30,000 per square meter, yung value ng property. Lalong-lalo na kapag nakatira ka sa, pobrest park. But not necessarily park ng mga pobre, but rather park ng mga super duper yaman sa Pilipinas, di ba? If you live in Forbes Park. Anyway, I digress. Going back. So, Pag na-issuehan ka ng halimbawa, meron kang lupa, ang gagawin mo is, gusto mo siyang masama sa magkaroon ng covered ng title, ng Torrens title, kasi hindi pa naman lahat ng property sa Philippines may Torrens title yung iba hindi pa, like especially mga nasa sulok-sulok ng probinsya. So ngayon mag-apply ka ng Torrens title, so court procedure yan, and then make the long story short, i-issuean ka ng court ng Torrens title. So dalawa ang copies ng title. Yung una is nasa Register of Deeds, yan yung original title. Yung pangalawa is yung tinatawag na owner's duplicate title. Okay, so isang titulo, dalawang kopya yan. Yung isa sa RD, yung isa sa'yo. Ngayon, yung title na pinangahawakan mo, kapag nag-enter ka ng contract of sale, yun yung ipapasa mo doon sa buyer mo. Okay? Ipapasa mo yun at saka pipirma ka ng deed of sale. Ngayon, kapag nasa possession na yun ng buyer, yung deed of sale na pinirmahan niya, plus yung owner's duplicate, ang gagawin niya, pupunta siya sa RD, covering the area ng property na binili niya. Tapos, ipapasa niya doon yung owner's duplicate, pati yung deed of sale. At make the long story short, ang mangyayari, ika-cancel out yung titulo na yun, and a new title will be issued to the buyer. So, bakit ko kinuwento yun? Para lang well, number one, para malaman ninyo. And pangalawa, para magkaroon ng real life application. At the same time, para ma-stick na, ma-embed sa memory ninyo na kapag bentahan ng real property, kailangan in writing siya. And hindi lang just in writing, kailangan in a public instrument. Okay? Bakit in a public instrument? Ano ba yung consequence kapag pinasa mo sa RD ng hindi notaryado? Well, i-reject yan ng RD. Sasabihin ng RD, we cannot process this kasi hindi siya notaryado. Uwi ka muna, panotaryo mo muna. Ganun kasimple. How do I know this? Well, syempre, first hand. Hindi pa naman nangyayari sa akin, pero ganyan naman ang sinasabi dun sa RD. Kasi as a practicing lawyer, you really learn everything sa well, most of everything from the ground up, meaning nandun ka talaga sa ground, meaning pumupunta ka talaga dati lagi talaga ako pumupunta sa lahat ng mga offices na yan kasi personally nilalakad ko talaga yan kasi gusto kong matuto. Okay, so natutunan ko naman, nakakapagod siya honestly, pero masaya kasi yung mga napag-aaralan mo sa law school, may real life application pala tong mga to, diba? Okay, ang dami ko na sinabi. Nasaan na tayo? Okay, so after nito, 1484 na tayo. In a contract of sale of personal property, the price which is payable in installment, the vendor may exercise any of the following remedies. So itong 1484, it is sale of personal property, payable in installment. Ang tawag dito ay recto law. May katumbas ito kapag sale of property in payable in installment naman, pero yun ay real property. Ito kasi personal property. Personal property, mga sasakyan, ganyan. Yung real property naman, yun yung mga lupa. Yung tungkol sa lupa na payable on installment, ang tawag naman doon ay, or covered yun, na tinatawag na Maceda law. Okay, bakit Maceda law? Kasi yung naggawa ng batas noon si Mr. Maceda. Anong first name niya? Hindi ko alam. Okay. So, ito, 1484, malamang si Mr. Recto ang gumawa nito, kaya tinawag na Recto Law. So, ano yung remedy mo kapag hindi nag-fulfill, or the vendor may exercise of the following remedies? So, kung hindi nagbayad yung vendee pala guys, yun yung buyer, ha? Yung vendor is yung seller. Yung vendee is yung buyer. So, hindi siya vendor-vendee, buyer-buyee. Hindi buyer-buyee, ha? So, vendor-vendee. Seller, and then buyer. Okay? Buyer-buyee. Seller-sellie. Walang ganun, ha? Vendor-vendee, buyer and seller. So, yung vendor, siya yung seller. Yung vendee, siya yung buyer. Exact fulfillment of the obligation should the vendee fail to pay. Yan yung tinatawag na specific performance. So, tatandaan nyo parati yung salitang yun, ha, kasi Yan ay isa sa mga paboritong tinatanong, specific performance. Number 2, cancel the sale. That's what you call the rescission. Okay? Should the vendee fail to pay 2 or more installment? Number 3, foreclose the chattel mortgage of the thing sold if one has been constituted. Should the vendee fail to pay 2 or more installments? Okay, ano na namang animal ito? Ang nakalagay dito, foreclose the chattel mortgage. What kind of animal is this chattel mortgage? And hindi ba pinag-uusapan natin dito personal property? Bakit napunta yung cattle dito? Actually, hindi yan wrong spelling. Hindi yan cattle, guys. Chattel talaga yan. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng chattel? Well, chattel pertains to personal properties. Okay? So, pag sinabi mong mortgage, chattel mortgage, that pertains to personal property, mortgage na personal property. Okay, popos muna tayo dito, tatalon muna tayo sa mortgage law. Okay, itong mortgage law naman, natutunan ko ito sa commercial law dati. Okay, so as you can see, tumatalon-talon tayo kasi sinusubukan ko talagang ipaliwanag sa inyo in simple terms yung pinag-aaralan natin. Okay, chattel mortgage. Okay, it is a type of mortgage. There are only 2 types of mortgages. Okay, the first one is ito, yung chattel mortgage, and then yung pangalawa is a real estate mortgage. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng mortgage? Okay, yung mortgage, yan ay tinatawag na ancillary contract or accessory contract which is attached to a contract of loan, which is the principal contract. So, ano bang purpose ng chattel mortgage or ng mortgage in general? Ang purpose ng mortgage in general is security siya. Okay? So, in the event na hindi mo babayaran yung principal contract, which is yung loan, ang gagawin is ibibenta yung security sa public auction. So, kung naalala niyo yung lecture natin last time na humaba kasi na-explain ko yung ibig sabihin ng ng auction sale, parang ganun yung mangyayari talaga, which is ibibenta siya sa public auction. Public hindi yung private. So, sa public auction siya ibibenta. Ibig sabihin, magkakaroon ng may highest bidder, tapos babayaran ng highest bidder kung magkano yung napanalunan niyang bid price, and kung may balanse, ibibigay yon dun sa nangutang. Okay, baka nalito na kayo. Uulitin ko, simplify ko ulit. Okay, ang mortgage, security yan sa isang loan. Okay, again, ang principal contract nito is loan. Okay, example, si A, nangutang siya sa bangko kay B for bangko ng 1 million pesos. Ngayon, syempre yung bangko, sa palagay mo ba maglalabas ng 1 million yan para papautang niya kay Mr. A? Ang sagot, syempre, hindi basta-basta. Syempre, kung walang security, hindi siya magbibigay. Otherwise, lahat na lang nangutang kay bangko, di binigyan niya ng tig 1 million, anong nangyari sa kanya? Hindi malamang nalugi na yung bangko, di ba? Nagsara na yung bangko. So, para ma-ensure niya na mababayaran siya, humihingi siya ng mortgage. Alright. So, ano ba yung mortgage na pwedeng ibigay ni Mr. A? Ang sagot, pwede siya magbigay ng personal property or pwede siya magbigay ng real property. So, for personal property, pwede niyang i-mortgage yung kanyang BMW. Basta worth more than 1 million. Or in the event naman na wala siyang sasakyan, pwede niyang i-mortgage ang kanyang bahay or ang kanyang condominium na worth more than 1 million. Okay? So, ano yung stipulation nila doon sa mortgage? Ang ibig lang sabihin nun, syempre yung loan contract nyo, may duration yan, di ba? So, usually sabihin natin 1 year. After 1 year, babayaran mo na yung utang mo. Okay? So, sabihin natin, after 1 year, hindi pa rin nagbabayad si Mr. A. So, pwede na bang magsampan ng kaso si bangko? Ang sagot, syempre, hindi pa. Kasi, tatandaan natin sa civil law, no demand, no delay. O, di ba? Nakakatuwa kasi yung mga natutunan natin ng mga previous chapters, ina-apply natin ngayon. So, anong gagawin ngayon ni bangko? Magpapadala muna siya ng demand letter. Okay? To prove na nag-create siya ng extrajudicial demand para mag-default na si Mr. A or yung nangutang. Okay, so may time period yung demand letter. Sabihin natin na within 10 days from receipt of this letter, you should make good or your loan obligation. If not, we will be constrained to file the necessary case against you, which in this case, it is a foreclosure case. So ngayon, magsasampa ng kaso si bangko para i-foreclose yung property ni Mr. A. So ngayon, papakita lang ni bangko doon na default nga siya, tapos may demand letter, tapos despite the lapse of the period of time, hindi nakapagbayad si Mr. A. Ngayon, ang sasabihin ng court, since may security pala dito, ibenta na natin sa public auction yung security. Okay, so bibenta ngayon yung either yung lupa o yung sasakyan. Ngayon, yung proceeds na makukuha doon sa bidding, yan ang gagamitin para masatisfy yung pagkakautang ni Mr. A sa bangko. Tapos yung balanse, ibabalik sa kanya. Copy? Sana naintindihan nyo ha. Napaka-importante ng konsepto na yon. And to be honest with you, sa law school ko lang naintindihan yon. Nasa bandang mga 20 plus years old na ako after ko naintindihan yung concept ng mortgage. Kaya ngayon, sana na-appreciate nyo yung konsepto ng mortgage. So, dito, ang sinasabi, we are going back to Article 1484 ha, sale of personal property through installment. So, ano ba usually yung binibili na personal property through installment? Di ano pa ba? Sasakyan. Wala nang iba. Okay? Well, actually, kung hindi sasakyan, baka yung mga malalaking sasakyan. So, mga vehicles pa rin. Okay? So, pag bumili ka ng vehicle for paid on installment basis, nangyayari ba ito sa totoong buhay? Aba, syempre. Laging nangyayari yan. Okay? So, I think this is what happens. So, I'll just slow down just a bit ha. Si A, pupunta siya kay Toyota, halimbawa, bibili siya ng Toyota Vios. Sabihin na lang natin 1 million yung value ng sasakyan. Wala siyang 1 million eh. Diba? So, ang gagawin niya, yan yung ipapasa nung Toyota kay, sasabihin nila may bank financing sila. So, kakausapin mo ngayon yung taga-bangko, a-approve ka. Ang mangyayari niyan is babayaran ng bangko yung yung 1 million. Pero ikaw, may utang ka na 1 million kay bangko at yun yung babayaran mo kay bangko. Alright? So, ngayon, para ma-secure ni bangko na babayaran mo siya, mag-e-execute si bangko na mortgage dun sa property na binili mo. Okay? Well, actually, binili mo gamit yung pera ng bangko kasi inutang mo nga yung 1M kay bangko. Ngayon, paano naman kikita yung bangko doon? Well, kapag may ano yan, naka-monthly ka, may tubo yan. Okay? Malamang, at the end of it, baka hindi lang 1 million yung binayad mo, baka 1.3 or 1.4 million na yung binayad mo. Dahil dun sa tubo per month. Diba? I hope that makes sense yung sinasabi ko. So, ngayon, ang tanong dito is kung bibili ka ba ng sasakyan, mas maganda ba na one-time payment or i-installment mo? Ang sagot mo, mas maganda na i-one-time payment mo talaga para hindi ka na dumaan dito sa mga amortization or monthly payment, 'di ba? Kasi may increase yan na maliit lang naman pero if you look at it over time, may malaki din pala. Okay? So kapag hindi mo nabayaran yung utang mo, pwedeng i-foreclose yung chattel mortgage if one has been constituted should the vendee fail to pay. Dapat walang ito. Fail to pay 2 or more installments. So, ang mangyayari dyan, i-foreclose yung property, tapos, ibibenta nila yung property, tapos magkakukunin nila yung proceeds. Yun yung gagamitin nilang pambayad ng utang. Okay? Okay, next na tayo. The nature of the remedies in Article 1484 are alternative, meaning one or the other. Hindi pwedeng lahat kukunin mo. It's either kukuha ka lang ng specific performance or cancellation or foreclosure of the chattel mortgage. The vendor has the following remedies to recover the unpaid balance of the purchase price. 1485 talks about lease of personal property with option to buy. So, yan yung inuupahan mo tapos bibilin mo yung property. Napakaganda ng ganyang setup. They are in reality sale of personal property payable in installments. Hence, the rule provided in 1484 will apply. Okay, so actually, hindi mo naman pala pwedeng upahan ng isang personal property. Rentahan probably would be the correct term. So, ang sabi dito, ang rule daw sa 1484 ang mag-a-apply. Ano ba yung 1484? Well, ito yon, yung exact fulfillment or specific performance, cancellation, and foreclosure of chattel mortgage. Yan yung mag-a-apply. 1486, in case of sale of personal property through installment, a stipulation that the installment or rents paid shall not be returned to the vendee or lessee shall be valid as long as the same is unconscionable. Okay, ulitin natin, breakdown lang natin in the cases of sale of personal property through installment, okay, a stipulation that the installment or rents paid shall not be returned to the vendee shall be valid. Okay, gets. So, halimbawa, bumili ka ng isang sasakyan. Tapos, ang nakalagay doon na kapag nag-breach ka or natigil ka sa bayad, lahat ng pinundar mo dun sa sasakyan, mafo-forfeit na sa bangko. Ang sabi dito, valid yon as long as hindi siya unconscionable. So, magiging unconscionable siya, halimbawa, nagpasok ka na ng 500,000 doon, tapos nag-miss ka lang ng one payment. Diba? Napaka-unfair naman na yung buong 500,000 mafo-forfeit in favor of the bank. Pero halimbawa, nagbayad ka lang ng isang buwan, after nun, di mo na talaga binayaran. So, yung isang buwan na mafo-forfeit sa bangko, parang hindi naman na unconscionable yun. Ano ba yung sabihin ng unconscionable? Well, it comes from the word conscience. Okay? So, unconscionable. So, parang walang konsensya talaga. Kumbaga, sobra-sobra walang konsensya. Okay? Napakalaki ng presyo. Okay? Napaka-unconscionable. 1487. The expense for the execution and registration of the sale shall be borne by the vendor unless there's a stipulation to the contrary. So, kung sino man yung bumili ng property, siya yung bahala magpa-register nun. Okay? The vendor has a duty to pay not only the expenses for the execution of the sale, so yung mga notaryo, sa kanya yon, but also for the registration of the same in the absence of any agreement between the parties. So, yung pagpo-process nun ng pagka-transfer sa kanyang pangalan ng mga property na binili niya na kay vendor. Okay? Sino ba yung vendor? Siya yung seller. Okay? Okay, nandito tayo sa question and answer. This is quiz number 4, but we are still at chapter 3. Alright? Yung next natin is I'm sorry, it's not chapter 3. This is still part of chapter 1. Okay, let me just jump here. Okay, very quickly lang, jump lang tayo sa taas ng natin. Okay, so nasa chapter 1 pa lang pala tayo. Okay, nature and form of contract, capacity to buy and sell. So, nasa nature and form of contract pa lang tayo, 1637. Teka lang guys check ko lang. Diyan tayo nag-start kanina tapos natapos tayo dito tayo natapos. Okay, so 1487. Okay, so this is still part of chapter 1, tama. So chapter 2 tayo next time, okay? So that's chapter 1. Okay, yung capacity to buy or sell, maiksi lang naman yun. Chapter 3. Okay? So, I'll see you. I'll just make the necessary correction kasi iba yung nailagay ko dun sa title nung videos. Alright? So, we will end for now. I'll see you again. That will be the fourth. No, that's gonna be the 5th video, but we will begin with chapter 2 doon sa video na yan. Alright, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.